Okay, this is super weird. I think we have a case of transformers fighting each other. But I arrived and for some reason the blower was not running. Thought it was maybe this relay, so I was gonna just change out the relay because it wasn't snapping in. But then I realized there wasn't actually any voltage to where the coil leads are on this black and brown wire. If there's no voltage present, then it's not gonna snap in. However, you can see our main contactor is snapped in. Now I actually have the power off to this thing right now. So it has 24 volts to it, but it wasn't bringing on the blower. Well, I found this burnt fuse, which is never really a great sign. So now I'm trying to figure out where the short in the system is. But check this out. Coming from the unit with the power off, we should have no power. Right from R to C on the thermostat terminals, because how it's supposed to work is this transformer sends 24 volts down to the thermostat through this wire here, and then it sends it back up on whichever wire it wants. So if it sends it up on the G, it'll run the fan. If it sends it up on the W, it'll run the heat. If it sends it up on the Y, it'll run the air conditioning. And the R is just the control voltage going downstairs. So if we check from C to R, we should get nothing, which we do. But if I check from C to G, I'm getting 25 volts. And if I check from C to Y, we're getting 24 volts. C to W, we're getting nothing. And so this contactor is pulled in. Now when I unplug this blue wire, it drops the contactor. So we're getting 24 volts from our thermostat, as far as I can tell. See, when I plug that in, it fires up again. It is getting power from somewhere downstairs. But how? So I gotta go up, or down rather, and figure out where this thing is getting its power. This low voltage wire just disappears down into the floor. Nothing in here. And you can see the disconnect is off. Anyway, very strange. There was also a very weird thing going on over here where they had like built a shroud in order to keep this filter cover open. And then they had that slidey bit so they could like slide it open to take outdoor air, like a manually adjusted air exchanger thing. But I took it all off because I just want to put this back the way it's supposed to be because it's kind of weird. I then went and looked for where that wire actually came up from the thermostat, and I was able to find it, but it went from the thermostat and like across the building a long way. I then opened up another ceiling panel and followed that over, followed by another, until I got to this low voltage wiring knot. It appears that the wire goes from there across all the way over to where my ladder is, and then it like juts across the building that way. So I don't know why. I expected that it would go from here straight up to the unit, but it doesn't. If I look through that vent, there's the filter of the unit we're working on. Okay, so we have reached the wiring nightmare over here. For some reason, we have this stuff tied into here. I don't know what it's for. So from that thermostat, the wire goes all the way over to roughly this corner of the building. And I think it comes up into this box right here. Blue, red, white, green, yellow. And then it goes into this unit. And there's a burnt fuse in here as well, and there's definitely voltage on this yellow wire. So that makes two systems that have burnt wires, but why are they tied together? Are they both controlled by the same thermostat? If so, that's really weird, and I don't know how it would even work without a relay separating the two transformers. Very strange. So same symptoms in this one. We have power here and here. I just shut off the power there. Let's go see if the contactor is still pulled in. Oh, I can hear it from here. It is still pulled in. So we're getting voltage into this system from something else. There's a random 2-wire down there. That's maybe what I'm suspecting, but still, it's really odd because are both of these units called by the same thermostat? It's very strange. Okay, so the random power is coming from this 2-wire, which we're gonna figure out where it goes. It was tied in from this red over to there and then to this red. Very strange. So the 2 wires that were feeding the voltage come all the way across the building over from these 2. And then this splits into pairs. One mysteriously goes down there to a different low voltage wire nut ball. Aha. Where do these go? Okay, these go to nothing. Oh, this one keeps going down that way. This thermostat wire appears to be interrupted by whatever this is. So this must interrupt the low voltage going to each thermostat. That's all I can think of. So it interrupts low voltage going to those 2, going to that one, and going to this one. Question is, where does it go? Through the doorway into the kitchen area. It comes from down there, goes right here, and where does it go to? There's this thing, whatever this thing is. So now that wire comes over here to another big wire cluster and continues on down that way. I don't know where it goes. This is a disaster. And all those wires come and they drop down into here, and there's a clock and a transformer, so that's weird. So based on the amount of dust up here, I don't think this has really been here that long. Let's see what's in it. Dramatic, astronomic. I don't know what this thing is designed to do. But if you look in here, they've got normally open 1, common, normally open 2, and the commons are all jumpered together. Here's our AC power coming in. There's this transformer on the side. I mean, that looks really freshly done. I bet we just need to maybe remove this. Oh, weird. Look at that. They tied... Oh, okay. So that is evidently doing nothing. Oh, but is it? Yeah, that's definitely has to be doing nothing. I'm sure that what happened is somewhere in here they just accidentally have power hooked up and it's backfeeding. We should be able to figure out which wire it is and switch it to the correct terminal, but it's just really strange. Also, all of the loads are off, and I think they should all be on right now, which makes me think the problem is coming from the kitchen AC, because that's the only one that's working still. So whenever it got hooked up wrong, it blew the fuses in the other air conditioners, but left the kitchen AC unaffected. So here's how we're going to do this. So we've got black, green, does the hallway thermostat. So we're going to write down the pairs. The 2 going across, all the way across the ceiling over to there, are black, orange. Also black, huh? Brown. It's not black. Brown. Orange. I'm gonna say 2 shakes. Because it's really weird, because it seems like, almost seems like that one does 2 air conditioners, but maybe it's actually this one goes over to there. Blue, yellow goes to service. And then we still have the kitchen unit. And we still have the one that goes way over there, but it would appear that a few of these are hooked to nothing. Specifically black or white and red. Not hooked up over here. They might be hooked up somewhere over down the line further. So I'm pretty sure they have extra wires hooked up that aren't being used because white and red were not hooked up over there. Unless they're hooked up somewhere else along the way, but I didn't see them hooked up anywhere else. White, red. I think these ones don't really need to be hooked up, but all of these are hooked up across there. And then we gain an additional pair of small ones, which are just tied together onto a single 2-wire. So this white and red matters, but I think this white and this red don't matter. So I think what we need to do is just get the pairs hooked up in here. So black and green should be the hallway thermostat, so that should interrupt the 24 volts coming from it and going to it. But then you can see they tied this blue wire in, but blue should be over here with yellow, and white is hooked up in here, but I think this white and this red are not being used. I'm pretty sure these two should not be hooked up to anything. In fact, we could go check it at the other spot and see if they have continuity with each other. There should be 24 volts here the way they have it wired right now, which there is on that one. And there should be continuity then. Yep. So these wires have power to them and are hooked up to nothing and need to be disconnected at the other end. So yeah, I think I do need to take out the jumpers, and I need to just get these pairs hooked up onto the dry contacts. And one of them, I don't know what it's for, this one, but I'm kind of guessing that's the kitchen AC. Because they put that jumper in there, it's feeding power to all of them. So yeah, that's what's wrong. They hooked the wires up all incorrectly in addition to putting those jumpers in. And then we'll have to set it up so that it's actually on. I don't know why they even bother having one of these. I kind of want to just wire nut everything so that this isn't even here, but they've got it here, so I don't know. Alright, so now I think we got it sorted. Black and green hallway thermostat, orange and brown goes over to where we were originally getting the weird power. Red and white is this 2-wire, which I think is the kitchen. Not sure. Or yellow and blue is the service one. So I'm guessing the low voltage from this one took out the fuse in that one and that one whenever they hooked that up like they did. So no buzzing on the contactor here anymore. We're gonna go down and I guess we'll actually try to program it so it'll close those contacts. Maybe I'll put fuses in this first and see if we're getting our voltage down there. That's what I should do. So now that I hooked up the wires up there and put a fuse in, the to shake one is giving me power, just like I expected it to. I'm gonna go put a fuse in the other one. And we'll see. I'm still a little confused because it kind of seems like that one thermostat is trying to do both those units, but maybe it's not. So the strange symptoms are gone. I just checked from yellow to ground and we're not getting weird voltage. And same on the red, we're not getting anything. So I think it'll be fine to put a fuse in. So with that turned on, now we have power on this black and green pair. So I just made a little map of the ones upstairs. I think this unit is broke down permanently, but I think it is still sending power down. I kind of think it's these two leads, but I'm not sure. And then I think the kitchen must be wired direct, and I don't know what these two are for, and I don't really want to take out 100 ceiling panels to figure out where these go. Doesn't really seem like there's any power on them. They might be an abandoned wire that was hooked up. But for sure we've got this load and this load that this controller is supposed to control and that we actually want to work. It's just that this load was backfeeding with those jumpers and the wires being in the wrong spots, and that's what burnt the fuses. So we got to set up this program now so that it will run these on, because right now they're all off. I just heard it click on. Now we should have nothing across here, but from 1 to ground we should have 25 and 25. Okay, so that worked. So let's go see if, let's turn this one on too. Okay, we got that one on. Get that one on. Let's turn them all on. See what happens. So that's closing each of these contacts. I gotta put the covers back on it right away because it's pulling a lot of air through here, so it's probably gonna trip out on high limit. But that did fix the problem. Now the blower is running and this system is cooling as it should. This one, the compressor is running, but that fan motor is bad, so we'll just shut that one off for now. And then this guy, I think there's something going on with it because this wire was unplugged. Alright, let's see if it kicks on. I think that's supposed to be bringing on the compressor. So the windings are open on this compressor. I think maybe the thermal limit thing is bad or something. But here's the other problem. Almost no refrigerant. Yeah, this thing needs a new compressor and leak detection. In the meantime, it can run as a fan, but it doesn't really do much. This one's good to go now. Now that I got that stuff all sorted out with the control panel thing. So just to recap, this is where I started. Started troubleshooting from the unit that this thermostat controls. Followed the wire down. So I took out that ceiling tile, followed the wire over to this ceiling tile, and then took out that ceiling tile, followed it to that ceiling tile where I had a wire knot around the corner, took out that tile, came over here, took out that tile, followed it to here, took out that tile, and then in here I took out this tile, and this is where most of those 2-wire connections branch off, and then I had to follow that wire across the firewall. And then this tile, and then this tile, which finally led me to where our timer clock is. So, man, that took a long time to troubleshoot and actually find the problem, but we're all up and running now on the systems that work, that is. 2 out of the 4 systems up there are not working, so it's kind of a bummer. And we'll just get rid of this transformer that they had installed in here for no reason. I'm guessing they thought they needed power for a little bit at first, so. And then fuses started burning and they couldn't tell if it was the wiring or what, and so they just gave up and left. Said, yep, it's good to go, and then it was not good to go, and that's why we had to figure it out, but we got it. So this blue-yellow is that old carrier unit up in the corner there, because there's no power there now and I have it off. So blue-yellow, brown-orange is the one that's working right now, and then black-green is the other one that has problems. So these 2 don't work. This one I don't know what it's for, but we're just gonna leave it intact. Maybe it's switching a common side for something, I don't really know, but I'll probably try to write this information down so that the next guy can understand what this is for without having to do what I did. So I just wrote in here a description of where that stuff is. So this is the best way to really explain what was actually going on in the circuit. So here in the middle we have the controller, and these are just dry contacts, so you can see we've got a switch for load 1, load 2, load 3, and load 4. And this is the way it's supposed to be wired. This is the way that we left it wired. So from each rooftop unit we have the R wire going down to the controller, and then if the controller has that on, it sends it down to the thermostat, and then the thermostat is able to send it up on any one of the calls. If it sends it on the W, you get heat, Y, you get cooling, G, you get fan, and that is the same for all the rooftop units. So the controller is just interrupting the 24 volts going from the rooftop unit to the thermostat because it prevents it from bringing on any single call. On this one I drew what's going on inside of the rooftop unit. The R wire has a 5 amp fuse and the transformer is on this side. So the transformer sends power through the fuse first and then to the R wire and then down through the controller and to the thermostat, and if there's any problem on this end it will burn that fuse instead of burn out that transformer. What they had done, a couple of things. First off, the pairs of wires were not correct, and we had 2 additional leads that were not supposed to even be hooked up that were hooked up, so we had an additional 2 more wires, and then they had added that low voltage transformer, I think trying to fix the problem, and then realized that that wasn't really helping, so they had just disconnected it. They had jumpers in between the common side like this, going across to all of these, which meant when they hooked everything up, the 24 volts from all the rooftop units were fighting each other, and this rooftop unit actually must have had a slightly stronger fuse or something, and so it burnt the fuse in this one and in this one, which is what we saw when we were up there. We saw there was a burnt fuse here, and also then this rooftop unit, its 24 volts was feeding through the controller to the other rooftop units, which made it complicated to troubleshoot, coming from the controller on the R and going through the thermostat and then back up to the unit. So it just made troubleshooting and finding the actual problem kind of difficult. So of course we got rid of these connections between the common side of stuff, isolated the pairs to what they were actually supposed to be to, and hooked it up like this. So I looked back, and this is actually exactly how they had it wired. So they had the jumpers between the commons like that, and then the R that was supposed to land here on load 4 they had brought over to load 2 and just tied in there for some reason. And then on load 4 they had these 2 random wires that actually went nowhere. They just dead-ended, tied in right here, so it's kind of unnecessary to have those hooked up. And they had this 24 volt transformer with everything just wire nutted, kind of making it extra messy in there. So we just got rid of this, removed the jumpers, moved this wire from here over to here, and we were good.